In the last lesson, you learned how to apply easing to create the slow in and slow out effect. In this lesson, you will incorporate custom easing to give you options beyond the -100 to 100 scale in the Properties panel. Open your Bouncing Ball 2 slowinout.fla file. We want to keep this file as it is, so we are going to make a duplicate. We're going to make a copy of this by clicking Save As in the File menu and adding the words Closer Look to the end of the file name. The ball we have been working with in our bouncing ball exercises looks a bit like a basketball, so we're going to run with that idea as we take our closer look. If you know anything about basketball, you know that you dribble the ball by putting your hand on top of it, quickly pushing it to the floor, and then stopping it from bouncing too high when it comes back up. If we compare the way our ball is bouncing now to the way a basketball moves when it's being dribbled, you can see that there is a big difference in the change in speed. The basketball has a much greater force pushing it down from the top, causing it to approach the ground at a much faster speed. On the way back up, the ball moves fast, but it stops abruptly when it hits the player's hand, as opposed to gradually slowing down at the top the way that our bouncing ball does. Let's switch over to our closer look flash file. Make sure that you have selected Show Frame from the Zoom menu so that you can see everything on the screen. Click on the keyframe on the first frame of the timeline and then locate the tweening section of the Properties panel again. Right now you should see -100 in the ease options, but to the right of that you see a pencil icon. Click on the pencil icon to open up the Custom Easing panel. This Custom Ease In, Ease Out panel opens up a graph for you to look at. Let's get acquainted with it. The bottom axis, or the x-axis, represents the number of frames that we're working with in this tween. We can see that it only goes up to 13 right now. That's because we're only working with this first section, from when the ball starts at the top to when it contacts the ground. The left-hand side, or the y-axis, represents the distance that the ball has traveled within each of these frames. At the very beginning, it's at 0. It hasn't traveled at all. By the time it reaches frame 13, it has done 100% of its traveling, or it's reached the bottom. The graph right now shows a curve that sags, which means the ball will be speeding up. In order to make the ball accelerate faster to the ground, like it's being pushed, we need to make that line sag even more. Click the black dot on the left end of the line. Another line will pop up with a white dot at the end. This handle edits the curve. Click and drag the white dot further to the right, somewhere around the halfway point, where frame 7 would be. Already you can see the line graph with a more drastic bowing to it. Click the black dot at the right end of the line to bring up the curve editor. Click and drag this white dot all the way to the right until it is pointing straight down. There's a play button in the bottom right of the Custom Ease Out pop-up menu. Pressing that will play the tween that we're on all the way to the end of the movie. You will see the ball accelerate very quickly to the ground, but then bounce back up the same way as it did before. We need to change the second tween now. If you haven't done so already, click OK in the pop-up to save and exit the Custom Easing panel. Now click on our middle keyframe to select the second tween and then reopen the Custom Easing panel by clicking on that pencil icon. Notice that this curve is bowed up like you're looking at part of a hill. This curve means that the ball will be traveling faster at the beginning than it does at the end, also known as a slow out. But it's still not fast enough for what we're doing right now. Click the black dot on the left end of the line graph to open the curve editor. We are basically just reversing what we did to the tween before. Click and drag the white dot all the way to the left until it's pointing straight up. This new graph is exactly like the other one, except turned upside down. You can click the play button to see what the ball will look like. When you're done, click OK to save and exit out of the Custom Easing panel and test your movie. You can test your movie by pressing the play button at the bottom of the timeline, or by pressing Command-Enter on your keyboard. Hopefully you can see how much harder the ball is hitting the ground now. It's clear that there is a force on it other than gravity pushing it down. In our basketball scenario, that would be the player's hand. All we did was make a little change to a tiny little graph. We didn't have to redraw anything or reposition our keyframes. This level of control is exactly what we want in order to make our animations look realistic.